Happy Wednesday. So today we're tackling chapter 14, and I'm out in my office because when I tried to shoot the video, my dog Mia was snoring. And I couldn't help but think, man, I hope I don't make the hearers of the video snore. But anyway, um, let me start with this. Why are we supposed to go to get an annual doctor visit and physical? Okay. Um, it's supposed to check our overall health in different areas. So we check our cholesterol, we check our blood sugar, for example, we check our blood pressure. Why? Because we're trying to identify if there's any disease. And if we find numbers are off, we dig a little deeper, we assess disease, and then we take steps to remedy the disease and change course. We take action. In our spiritual life, we ought to do the same thing. And I think in chapter 14, we have a great example. Luke gives us this chapter, which kind of builds on some sequential health markers in our spiritual life. And it's good for us to look at them. Now, God's been doing this already through chapters 11, 12, and 13. Like the preceding chapters have kind of, I think, hopefully, if you're honest reading it and evaluating, it has made us uncomfortable at points, and it's made us look at things. It's incredibly healthy to do that, okay? And chapter 14 is designed to do that again. So it starts out with something pretty simple. What Jesus is getting, Jesus is getting invited to another Pharisee's house to share another meal, which I love that already. You guys know that. And what precedes the meal with this Pharisee is Jesus has done another healing, and he's messed it up again because, surprise, surprise, he's done it on the Sabbath. And Jesus has a way of confronting this idea of what are we really placing our hope and our trust in? Are we hoping and trusting in laws and rules that as we follow them, we experience a deepening sense of love and purpose? Or are we really trying to seek love and purpose in a relationship with God himself? So for lack of a better term, are we experiencing religion, or are we entering into relationship? And I don't mean to use religion continually as a dirty word, because it's not, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. When I say relationship over religion, I'm referring to this dynamic we're reading about in the Gospels, where so many of the religious leaders, they were so caught up in living out the forensic letter of the law that they lost sight of the overarching principle of love and of goodness and of purpose for which God gave us these laws. So, for example, the Sabbath. The Sabbath is not supposed to oppress people. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't work, you can't take your ox out of the ditch. It was given to bless people. Work hard for 6 days, and then God says on the seventh, rest. And what are you supposed to do when you rest? You're supposed to rest. Okay? Oh, what a crazy idea. And while you're resting, not working, you should be reflective. You should think of your life. You should think of God. You should spend time with family. You should eat a meal together. You should worship together. Sabbath is supposed to bless us, not oppress us. And Jesus exposes that. So Jesus says, okay, if I got to make a choice, I get someone hurting, suffering, I have the ability to alter the course of that suffering. So I can demonstrate compassion, mercy, and love, or I can say no to that, and I could satisfy you as the judgmental religious leader, and I'll hold the observance of the law. I ain't doing it. I ain't playing your game. Isn't that beautiful? So that's, I think, easy. I don't think we're struggling with that. What follows, though, at the meal is a little bit more complicated, and it's good. So this Pharisee, he says something very spiritual. He says, I cannot wait until we all experience the great banquet in heaven with God. What an incredible experience that might be, which on the surface is actually a beautiful thing to say, except Jesus has insight into the heart of this Pharisee and maybe even why he's saying it. So what Jesus does is he kind of says, yeah, wow, that's spiritual. Wow, that's good. But then Jesus goes on, he starts to tell a story, which leads to our second spiritual marker. The first one, do we create a small g God in our own image and create rules that if we follow them, God is compelled to serve us and give us what we want? Is that our religion? Or are we seeking inward transformation where we could go from being consumers of God and being contributors to his kingdom, being agents of love and light, being salt and light that we're reading about? Which is our real motivation, right? So are we law keepers or are we peacemakers? The second one is humility. So Jesus starts telling this story about, hey, when you get invited to a banquet, a big party, don't automatically assume you sit at the table of honor. Don't go grab a seat next to the host. Go sit far back. And the better approach is wait for the host to correct you, right? To say, hey, Akeem, what are you doing over there? You don't sit there. You're with me. Come to my table. That this is a better approach to life. And I love what C.S. Lewis says about true humility. He says true humility, it's not about thinking less of yourself. It's simply thinking of yourself less. It's a different, right? It's a different thing. And I think a true mark of how we're doing in this humility part of our life is, how do we feel when someone attains or achieves something that we're striving for? And we see that they get the recognition, they get the accolades, and we don't. How does that make you feel, right? I'll give you a silly example. As a football coach, if we win a game and a reporter from Newsday wants to come and interview the head coach, right? What do? What I actually try to do all the time is I say a couple of quick things and I say, hey, you know what you need? You need to talk to my offensive line coach, Tim, because the offensive line, they won the day today and he's done a great job. He's one of the best coaches in the league. And I want to give the microphone to Tim so Tim can get some recognition. Or I might say, my offensive coordinator called a great game today. Go talk to him. And this way, James gets to talk and James gets some recognition. Now, here's the part that's beautiful, is I don't actually need to do that for either James or Tim, because both of those guys are very happy to sit back and let me talk to the reporter, let me hold up the trophy. And they're willing to be satisfied in the lesser role because they know deep within them that I know deep within me that they're the reason we succeed, that the kids are the reason. The kids play the game. We just coach the game. So one of the measures of true humility is that we're comfortable when we work and we labor and no one is praising us and saying, great job, Mary Ann Ginatino, another wonderful way of service to others. That we could sit and say, God sees, and that's enough. So humility, right? And then he talks about deeper about, as this guy's talking about the banquet in heaven, Jesus starts to talk about the real motivation behind wanting to be at this banquet. And it has to do with wanting the blessings of the banquet more than the host of the banquet. So again, the Pharisee is probably more interested in the quality of the zuppa de pesce, or the eggplant rollatini, or, what vintage was this Chianti? Is my water glass is almost empty. Fill it up. How's the service, right? So in other words, is the longing for the banquet, the great banquet, about experiencing the blessings of the one hosting the banquet? Or is it more about being in the presence of the host of the banquet? Something to think about. And same thing with our lives. Do we want the blessings of Jesus? Or do we want Jesus? Do we want the relationship? And that's where Jesus talks about. There's so many that when Jesus, think about it, Jesus is in front of them. He's standing before them. And he's saying, I've spent generations to prepare this great celebration. What are the generations of preparation? hundreds of years, 800 years roughly, from the time of Abraham, through all the kings, through Joshua, through exile in the wilderness, through David, all through these, the whole kingship line, through Solomon, and Jesus now is in the presence of these religious leaders. The banquet's ready. All the preparations are done. And they're like, I'm too busy. Not interested. And why are they not interested in the story? They have great reasons not to be interested. They are not interested because they got work to do. They got to work some overtime. They got to pay the mortgage. They have family obligations. And you just think of the list of the things that get in the way of why they can't attend the banquet that has been prepared for them. So what does the host say in response? He says, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to open up the party to anyone involved. Anyone can come. Take them off the streets. Anyone who is interested in tasting and seeing my goodness, invite them in. And this is the invitation we have as Gentiles, because Luke wrote mostly to a Gentile audience. And again, who are the Gentiles? The Gentiles are non-Jews. That's all it means. So Luke is writing this account mostly to a Gentile audience, and it's to be celebrated that because God has such an overflow of mercy that he opens up these special promises that were originally displayed through the nation of Israel. And over the years, he has expanded that opportunity to enter into a flourishing life with a relationship with the Son that he sent. And it's available to anyone. It's available to you. It's available to me because we're Gentiles. And it's a beautiful story. So, in closing, what Jesus is doing is confronting, do we hold rule following and religion above real relationship? Are we genuinely humble people that want to see the kingdom advance, even if we don't get all the credit? 3, do we want the blessings of the Father more than we want the Father? Do we want Jesus to bless us more than we actually want a relationship with Jesus? These are hard and deep questions, but they're questions that help us assess our overall health. So keep leaning in, keep reading. Thanks for being a part of it. Have a great day.